Okay, I want to start off by getting a feel for where we are as an audience. By show of hands, how many of us have a social media account of some sort? It can be anything from Facebook to Twitter to Tinder. Okay? Now, raise your hand if you have that on your phone. That's sort of an application. Okay? Now, please raise your hand if you've checked it today. By show of hands, how many of you have checked it in the past hour? Okay, now be honest. How many of us have checked it while we've been in this room? Okay. What is it about social media that makes us want to check it so often? What is it that draws us in? Today I want to talk about what the effects, what the impact of social media is on us as individuals and as a society. Nokia, the cell phone company, has actually performed a research study on how often we check our phones. They said that on average, the American checks their phone about 150 times in a day. That's the equivalent of once every 6 minutes. It's pretty impressive, right? Now, for the millennial generation, that's 18 years old to 29 years old, we check some sort of social media about 2 hours every day. Other research has shown that. That's an average for America. That's a lot of time. There are some negative impacts that we experience as we check social media so much. One of them is the way we process information changes. Now, before social media, we read books or whatever for information. Now information is so readily accessible. Valuable information, stuff about engagements or that thing from BuzzFeed, whatever. There's so much. Our brain can't process all of it effectively. It's like if you think of an all-you-can-eat buffet. Let's say the Bellagio in Las Vegas, where you've got all of this 5-star food in front of you for the taking. But an hour later, you're on this 4th plate, you've just piled it up with, you've got like 3 eclairs on there, you've got 2 bacon strips, and then you've got French toast over there. And the syrup's just kind of mixing in with everything, and you're okay with that because it all tastes good. How much of that food is your body going to be able to process and digest effectively? Not much of it. The same thing happens with our brains. We can't process all of this information. We overload our brains. We give it too much. And then we train our brain to respond to information like the buffet. We just skim over it. We don't really consume it. We don't think about it. This has been related by researchers to ADHD and ADD and other learning disorders that change the way we interact with information. Not just information though. Social media actually makes us not as effective at socializing. It acts as almost a social placebo. If you think about it, when we socialize, when we interact with somebody, we are happy. It's because our brain releases a chemical called dopamine and some other chemicals. It makes us feel fulfilled, it makes us feel like we have connections. Social media also triggers those chemicals in our brain. But they trigger them without the actual benefits of socialization. We don't actually get those connections. Have you ever felt like extremely alone, but at the same time, you don't want to reach out and you don't want to be with anybody? That's one of the imbalances that social media can have on us. Because it fills our brain's need to connect with people, but we don't actually connect with people. President Uchtdorf actually talked about this in October of 2012. In General Conference, he praised social media as an amazing way to connect with people. But he said that we're not heading the right direction as individuals or as a society if the main way we connect with people is online, through sending them a link or sending them that funny video of the cat jumping over the fence. We need to have those real relationships. I want to share kind of a sobering story about somebody named Yvette Vickers. She was a B-list movie star from about the 50s and 60s, movies like The Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, some interesting films. She died in 2010. Best guess. We don't actually know when she died because she was found about a year later in her apartment. Her neighbor went over to check on her and found her upstairs alone on the ground with a space heater and her computer next to her. For almost a year, no one noticed that she was missing. Not her family, not her friends. Now, she had an avid following on Facebook. She had a strong presence on social media. She had a lot of fan mail as well. But she was missing those real connections. She let social media relationships replace the ones that mattered. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to be what happens to us if we engage too much on social media. But I do think that there are things we can do to prevent that from beginning to happen. One thing that I suggest is that we delete social media accounts from our phones. It's just too easy to pull it out when there's an awkward situation or when we're bored. If we limit our access to it, to just the computer, we still have all of the valuable benefits of social media, the connectivity, but It doesn't dictate when we use it. We choose when we access social media. Another thing I suggest, and I actually got this from a devotional at BYU, Ryan Holmes suggested an idea a few years ago of called digital quiet time, where we just unplug for a bit every day and let real life happen. With these suggestions and whatever else you can think of to address social media, I know that we can improve our relationships as a society, and social media will be a tool we use, and it won't be something that uses us.